I didn't want to make a long video about every little thing that I guess triggered the ending or triggered my exit from the organization. But I did want to share my side of the story for any remaining friends and family who are curious as to why I would do something so dramatic. If you didn't know, I have been inactive, or I should say, I realized that this was not for me 5 years, going on 6 years ago during the pandemic, 2020. The catalyst for me in doing my own research and understanding some very hard truths that I just could not ignore was watching three of my closest friends, get disfellowshipped back to back, all in the span of a year. The thing is about that, because of my conditioning and my training, I was sort of okay with the arrangement, but when I saw it firsthand, the experience of people who are excommunicated, it is a humiliation ritual. There's no other way to cut it. There's no other way to look at it. It is an inhumane way to treat human beings. And one of my friends who was excommunicated had just been put on suicide watch. And I just couldn't for the life of me understand why at that moment they thought it was a good idea to take away her only community. Because when you're raised as a witness, when you are a baptized and dedicated Jehovah's Witness, chances are your only friends, the only people that you really rock with like that, are part of the organization. So when you get excommunicated, you get shunned. You are not invited out anymore. You are not spoken to anymore. The congregation doesn't even acknowledge you. So you go to church, or you go to these meetings weekly, and you're supposed to be repentant by showing up and putting on a brave face and just watching as everybody avoids eye contact and gets out of your way and doesn't acknowledge you. That is a humiliation ritual. And I just couldn't understand for the life of me why they would do that for someone who was mentally ill. They would do that to someone who was mentally ill. And I asked an elder during the time, I have to remember that it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses that are watching this, it's people who don't know the terms that I'm using, but an elder is basically a leader in the congregation, in your assigned congregation. I think that's a simple and clear explanation. Okay, I asked an elder who I was close to at the time, I was like, how do you know the difference between what they call spiritual weakness, which would be the reason for excommunicating someone, or sin, versus mental illness? How do you draw the line? And he couldn't answer me. He couldn't give me an answer at all. He just got silent. And then I realized, it was actually a big epiphany moment for me. I realized these men are not qualified. They do not have the credentials to even determine if someone is mentally fit. How can you expect someone who is not mentally fit to act in a mentally fit way? There's a correlation. And I also became aware of a lot of people who were unfairly excommunicated. I mean, if you ask me, I think all excommunications are unfair. But really, you have men who are running this shit show, excuse my French, and if they are going off on a power trip, then you're fucking screwed. Like, there are people who get excommunicated for things that others haven't. So it really just depends on the elders involved in your case, involved in your situation. So I watched that happen. I watched how it dehumanized people. It destroyed a lot of lives. I watched that. I watch how when they come back to the congregation, they're never quite the same. So the ones who have been disfellowshipped and they come back to the Kingdom Hall and they get what's called reinstated, which means they are now welcomed back into the flock, and everybody love bombs them and greets them and hugs them and welcomes them. We're so happy you learned from your mistakes after we completely ignored you and shunned you. Yeah, let that sink in. So they come back and they're happy to have community again, but they're never the same. Never. Always on the outside. And yeah, it's like the blind leading the blind. So in a nutshell, that was the catalyst for me leaving. I had to get the hell up out of there. And then I had a whole bunch of other questions. I was just like, what the fuck? There's just so many things that don't make sense. Like, at the time, men could not grow their own facial hair. They had to keep it shaven. And if you were someone who just did not want to conform, you'd also be isolated and treated as disobedient or rebellious to those who are taking the lead. And now they made a rule, another arbitrary rule, that, okay, it's okay, men can wear beards. And so now Jehovah's Witnesses men have beards after not having beards for decades. After that experience, watching my friends get dehumanized, I had so many questions about doctrine, so many things that just didn't make sense. And it made me think about a talk or like a public discourse that occurred in my congregation years ago when I was only like 12, and the elder who gave the talk was saying that we don't need, apparently there were people in the congregation who were doing research outside of the material or the resources that were already provided by the organization. And so the talk was about that, how we don't need to do that. We just need to stick within what the organization provides. We don't have to do research outside of that. And even as a 12-year-old, I was like, okay, why can't we do our own research? You know, it just dawned on me that if the truth is a truth, no matter what you look at, it will prove that it's a truth. Basically, the truth should hold its weight under scrutiny, right? That's how we have conviction. It's because we do the research, but they encourage you to not do that. And in fact, if you do that and you look at outside resources, it's called apostasy, which is the worst thing you could be. Let me tell you how bad apostasy is. Apostasy is worse than being a fucking pedophile, a murderer. Okay? You can be all that shit, come back, repent, and be accepted in the congregation. But the minute you speak bad about the organization, you're done. You're done for. That is the worst. I kid you not. That is the worst thing you can do, is speak bad about the organization. So yeah, I had questions. I was like, okay. And I put that in the back of my head. I got baptized at 12. I had no idea what that would require of me. And I'm naturally a free-spirited person. I'm not someone who conforms easily. Like, I've always been kind of like doing my own thing and not doing what other people are doing, especially when it comes to dress, like hair. I was the first girl to rock my natural hair, which was another whoop-de-doo. Not going down that road. So yeah, I decided, after realizing, okay, these men are not qualified, and they're saying that God's Spirit is directing them to take away a person who is suicidal, take their community away. I was like, what else doesn't make sense? And I came across this book. I don't know, the algorithm was just doing its thing, and it was called Leaving the Witness. And everything in my body was telling me, read this fucking book. And then the fear-based programming that exists when you are conditioned and groomed as a Jehovah's Witness, was like, don't you do it. Don't do it. And then I did it. Yeah, I did it. And I don't have any fucking regrets, because after reading that book, highly recommended, by the way, I realized, oh shit, I'm in a cult. I'm in a fucking cult. I'm in a fucking cult. I'm in a fucking cult. Like, it just, everything just started. The dots started connecting. It was like, you know, Neo when he has to choose between the red and the blue pill. Either stay the same or really learn what reality is like. And it just hit me. It hit me. I'm in a fucking cult. And so that, I mean, I went down the rabbit hole on every fucking thing. Every question that I had that I put in the back of my head, because no, doubts are bad. Doubts are a sign of weakness, and I am not weak. I believe in the Lord, and my conviction is based on truth. My convictions were based like on sand. like if my house was made out of sand. That's the conclusion that I came to. You have a bunch of men don't know their left from their right, dictating the lives of so many people, and they are being bamboozled. They're being fooled to think that they know what's best. I can go on and on about the atrocities that I've discovered that have happened within this organization, but one in particular that I just could not condone was this widespread pedophilia thing that let me use better words. Okay. Children have been abused. People have been abused, and this organization has kept it hidden. And I'm talking about sexual abuse. They've kept it hidden. So much so that they have had to be brought to court for the injustices that they've done to these victims. Just look up Jehovah's Witnesses in court. The Australian Royal Commission was my first eye-opener. I was like, what? 1,006 cases of unreported child sexual abuse. All hidden. The elders knew, the leaders up at headquarters knew, and they hid it. And not only that, you have a policy, what they call the 2-witness rule. This is what you use to dictate whether or not to get the police involved. If there are not 2 witnesses to see the sin, then nothing really should be done of it. That's some bullshit. So if a child is getting essayed by their father, there's no other witness, just the father. It's the father's word against her. Anyway, I'm probably not doing this enough justice in explaining the systemic problem that exists within the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses. But I left because it is a cult. Simply put, I left because I value my freedom. And my soul was literally dying. By the time I started questioning everything, I was so repressed and so hungry for freedom. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what was going on with me. It was manifesting as a bunch of health problems and mental illness, specifically debilitating anxiety. And then I stopped going. And that anxiety went away. So I left because I value my freedom. never give that up to anybody willingly. Again, I wouldn't say it wasn't a waste. I definitely learned a lot. And it's not like I had a choice in the matter. I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. But you're talking about 26 years of devotion, dedication, suffering, complete suffering. But yeah, I left because it's a cult. If there's anybody out there who is struggling and you have your doubts, the doubts are worth looking into. Trust me, there are a lot of people who are physically in but mentally out, which was me for a long time, and I just didn't know it. And it's because there's a lot of things that just don't add up. Your critical thinking skills are being suppressed actively by you being exposed to propaganda all the time. Think about it. As a witness, you have two meetings per week. Then you're encouraged to use basically all your free time to go preaching. You live in an echo chamber. Everyone's saying the same thing back to you. And that is a form of programming. And it works, and it's working. It's working. As of right now, I have sent my letter of dissociation, and it honestly has brought me a lot of relief, but it does come with its own devastation. My relationship with my parents will never be the same. My mom refuses to talk to me. In fact, before I sent this letter of disassociation, things had escalated so much. She had put her hands on me. She couldn't talk to me without losing her temper. There's a lot that goes on when your family is indoctrinated. Because to them, when you decide to leave, it's because you no longer love God. You no longer have a relationship with Him. And they also are dreading it, and they fear it because they think you're going to die. So that's the thing. Jehovah's Witnesses are what I call a doomsday cult. They believe that at the end of the world, when Armageddon comes, only those God deems worthy will survive, and it's mostly going to be Jehovah's Witnesses. And the whole earth is going to be a paradise populated by people who all believe and think the same things. That sounds terrible. Sounds bland. So, after realizing that was not for me, I can now have compassion for the person I was. And I do have compassion for my parents, even though they have been nothing but abusive towards the end of my exit, towards the transition, towards me leaving, actually formally leaving the organization. I have compassion for them because they really do believe this is a life or death matter. That's my story, I guess. I can go into a lot of other things, but that's it in a nutshell. I left because it's a cult, and I value my freedom. I hope you value yours too. Look at my story. Look at all the XJW stories that are out there. Listen, we have left for a reason. So if you find yourself curious about the friendly faces that are knocking on your door, don't be that curious. Trust me, you don't gotta be that curious. They ain't that happy. I promise you. Anyway, to my family and friends, this is my story. If you made it this far, I love you, and I wish you well. There's no resentment. There's no anger over here. I'm just living my life like you are living yours. Everybody has to do what allows them to sleep at night. That's what I'm doing. Bye.